Good afternoon, everybody. It is Wednesday, the 31st of March, the last day of March. And today we have a guest speaker, Dr. JoJo Yonce. He's going to be talking about using the safe and sound protocol to enhance nervous system regulation. I've sent out multiple announcements with his background, so in order to save time, we're just going to let JoJo get started. About 10 to the hour, I will give him a warning. He will wrap up and then take questions towards the end, but everybody is now muted until we unmute you about 10 to the hour. So JoJo, thank you again so much. I know that you're a busy clinician, and anybody taking the time out to present for us is always we're always so grateful that you're willing to do it. And this is a hot topic, as you know, lots of people are interested. So thanks for being with us, and it's all yours.
Thanks, Rob. I'm happy to be here doing this. My wife was asking me yesterday, what are you doing over there? And it seems like when I put one of these presentations together, it's never quite done, but I hope it comes across well, and I hope it's helpful to all of you. So I got hooked up with Safe and Sound Protocol in my never-ending quest to help really enhance outcomes with the clients that I work with. And it's been one of those things that has really just proven to be invaluable in the clients that I work with for neurofeedback. That's at the heart of what we do, is brain mapping and neurofeedback. So I'm happy to share it with you. All right. These are my offices, by the way: Asheville Brain Training, Greenville Brain Training. So I thought it would be helpful. I know a lot of us have this background, but even those of us that do, there are some insights I'd like to point out that really will come to later that are meaningful. So we have various different types of nervous system. The central nervous system, made up of the brain and spinal cord, peripheral nervous system, and then there's the enteric nervous system. But I'd like to highlight the cranial nerves. And these are 12 pair of nerves that come off the brain at the brainstem level. And it really strikes me as a way that our brain and our central nervous system is reaching out into the world to bring in information. We have eyes, we have ears, not just ears, but the 8th cranial nerve, the vestibulocochlear nerve, is amazing. And when you really dive into this and see how they attach to the brainstem, this is at the heart of what really what we're going to be talking about, and how we can help bring ease into the nervous system. Yeah, I may flip back to this, but let's move on for now. So the vagus nerve is one of these pairs of nerves, the 10th cranial nerves. And vagus, the background for that word means the wanderer, because it's the one that goes so far away from the brainstem. It actually pierces the diaphragm and goes down into the gut. And it's just amazing. And I have not been able to find out in my research, like, why is it vagus nerve and not nerves? But we do have a pair, and I think it's just, I don't know, I guess we just call it the vagus nerve, but there are a pair of them, and they exit just anterior to the mastoid process, just behind the ear. So I'll point that out again down the road here. By the way, I've if it's not listed here, I have a few slides at the end, just reference for all of this, these things I'm talking about. So one of the things that's really interesting about the vagus nerve is between 80 and 90%, depending on the source you look at, 80 to 90% of the nerve impulses traveling go up from the body to the brain. And I think this is where you hear the HeartMath research talk about 80%, or rather there's more information going from the heart to the brain than there is from the brain to the heart, which is quite a concept if you've never heard that. But I think this is why, is that we have more information heading up to the brain through the vagus nerve than the other way. So the vagus nerve, this is kind of what can keep us stuck in fight or flight or freeze if that's not balanced. So we'll be talking more about that. So here is kind of a representation of the vagus nerve, and looks a little, I couldn't tell, I zoomed in on this. I'm not, that's pretty detailed if that's in fact the vagus nerve branching out. Not sure about that, but here's another just representation of that. Let me jump to this one. So there are some vagus nerve people to know about. I don't have a lot to say about this guy. I don't know his background, but Dr. Steven Porges, I would highly recommend if you haven't to listen to his Lunch and Learn. That was, I went back and listened to it again, and it was from the December of 2019, right before this pandemic. And wow, what an amazing thing his research and the Safe and Sound protocol has been through this last year. And we'll talk more about that. But Dr. Steven Porges, he came up with the polyvagal theory. He wrote a book about it, and it has to do with really two types of vagus nerves. There's the dorsal and the ventral. The dorsal is what can cause shutdown or freeze, and then the ventral has to do with being safe and sound in the world. So let me go back to this. I wanted to mention that before pointing out that this guy, another guy on that slide I was just on, Stanley Rosenberg, I haven't made it all the way through this book yet, but it's a good source for exercises, self-help exercises. You may be aware that certain ways to stimulate the vagus nerve are gargling, humming, things like that. This really goes into the two different branches, so it's something he's recognizing as well. And then Deb Dana, she came up with this latter idea based off of Dr. Steven Porges' work, and she's really a clinician utilizing this in her work. And so I'd like to go into, we're gonna do a little more background on the ear and the 8th cranial nerve before we dive into the Safe and Sound protocol and how we use it. And several things at play here. We also use the Berard auditory integration training, and I'll explain what that is, and it'll make sense as we're going through here. I must say, I'm not clear how listening to modulated music brings balance to the vagus nerve. I thought I would flush that out, but my best theory is in listening to these people that I've mentioned so far is that it brings stress off of what the nervous system has to attend to and deal with. A good example to me is if I have a patient who recently had knee surgery, and that's a lot for the nervous system to deal with. It doesn't necessarily directly impact brain function, but because the nervous system and the immune system has to pay attention to that, it doesn't have resources to do what it might normally do in a day had that not been happening. So that's my best internal explanation of how this works. We're bringing ease to a lot of different aspects of the nervous system. So I'd like to play this 2-minute video just to give us a background of really how amazing the ear is. Can I just ask, can you hear and see this, Rob?
I see it. You'd have to turn the volume up.
That's okay. I'm just going to narrate.
There you go.
You can hear it now?
No, but we can see the narration.
Okay. Let me pause right there and say, so this is at the heart of the theory and the explanation that Dr. Berard has around the Berard auditory integration training, which is kind of analogous. I'll just say we'll explore the similarities and differences, but I think I think this is also at play with the safe and sound. It makes sense to me that it would be. But you have a something called the stapedius muscle reflex, that when there's a loud sound, it's a protective mechanism. Let me see if I have that. Did I do that slide? No, I must have taken that out. I got a little detailed and took out a dozen slides or so. Oh, I don't know where that went now. Anyway, I think we were done with that. I just wanted to show you that, to show you really one of the theories around Burrard auditory integration training is that there is this stapedius muscle reflex where a muscle attaches to the stapes, this third inner or middle ear ossicle, to protect the eardrum or the cochlea from damage when there's a loud sound. And so when the stapedius muscle reflex kicks in, it pulls back the stapes from this oval window so that sound doesn't as directly get in. And the theory is that this can get stuck as a kid or even as an adult in the presence of loud sounds, that if that's contracted, certainly there must be some aspects at play that, well, I might not be safe. The nervous system maybe now is unsafe in some way. But the explanation for Burrard auditory integration training anyway is that the modulated music kind of exercises this muscle and causes a release of a chronically stuck stapedius muscle reflex and allows the stapes to re-engage with the oval window, thus putting pressure and translating sound through the cochlea. Yeah, and it's just amazing. I would highly recommend to go watch this later, especially this. I don't want to go try to do that again, but like go watch this. This is like a 6-minute video. It's well worth watching, and this one's about 2.5 minutes. So take a look at that. You'll just be amazed. I mean, even the more you know, the more amazed you are with anatomy. At least that's the way I feel. And it's amazing to me what's come along in terms of our ability to access this information and dive in over the last 22 years since I've been in school. It's amazing. I feel like grandpa, even though I'm not one yet, sometimes when I think of things that way.
JoJo, will you be sending us your slides?
I will. How would you like me to do that?
Just email them to me and I'll post them on the listserv. That way people won't have to worry about trying to type down all that information. Thank you.
Yeah. And this was just a really neat lecture I saw on how the ear and the brain interface. Yeah, so I thought I'd throw that in there for you. So a little bit, without going too deep, I wanted to talk about as the ear processes sound, it really is not as simple as coming in and then going straight to the area of the brain. We all, I think, know the temporal lobes have to do with processing sound, but it first goes through the 8th cranial nerve to the brainstem, and there is crossover at several areas, much like the eye does, so that if one side, the theory is, so if one side of the brain is damaged, you don't lose that. The other side of the brain can take over. But there's a lot of crossover, a lot of interplay, a lot of coordination in from the sound vibration in the air to us interpreting that sound. Further, there is a lot to not just hearing at the brain level that tone, but interpreting it. There are different areas of the brain that are at play in reading words, hearing words, thinking about words, saying words, and how that all goes together. I often think of when I hear auditory processing challenge or diagnosis of auditory processing, there's so much at play there. It's not at all, can that person hear something? They may be able to hear something fine, but not process it well. And there's even this added thing where if you're hearing something over here in the room, the left ear might hear it first before the right ear hears it bounced off a couple walls. And it's up to the brain to reconcile that difference and tell where it's coming from. It's just fascinating. All right. So that brings us to the safe and sound protocol, which I'll tell you a little bit about how I got into this. This company, Unite, I found them years ago, and I started using their HRV biofeedback device, the IOM 2, which I really like a lot. And then it turns out I found out about Dr. Steven Porges and his technology that he was getting ready to deliver through ILS. Well, it turns out Unite ended up buying ILS. Unite is a Canadian company. So it's like I had two things in one house, which was nice. And Unite started years ago as the Wild Divine. I think that was associated with Deepak Chopra, and it was a biofeedback system where you put your fingers in it. And so that's interesting. This is the evolution of that, the Unite IOM 2. And we don't really use that in our office anymore. Honestly, the safe and sound protocol is kind of taken the place in my mind of our HRV biofeedback because we use it for the same population. We use it as an adjunct or a prelude to neurofeedback whenever there's the presence of anxiety, whenever there's the presence of, or rather history of trauma in any sense, like especially adoption or just identifiable trauma. But you know, trauma is very relative. We all have some degree of that, and so it's really rare that I don't use the safe and sound protocol with everybody these days, especially since it became available to use at home. It's, of all the things we offer, it's really doesn't take a lot on my end. It's just me. I'll show you how I do that, but we just go in and unlock it and hook somebody up with it, and now they're available to do it at home. So we were using it in 3 of our offices before they flipped to a home training option, and so it was even. We were doing it. Our sessions in our office are about an hour, 30 minutes of neurofeedback, and then 15 to 30 minutes of something else, either AVE or red and infrared light or safe and sound protocol. But now that people can do this at home, that leaves room for the in-office visits where we can do something else. So let's see, okay. So here's where they're kind of incorporating Steven Porges' work. So he's chosen the ILS to deliver his safe and sound technology. And you know, if you read through this, it doesn't answer for me how it's working. I mean, it's got some good words, and you do this, and it creates neurological regulation, and the vagus nerve is at play. But I don't think. I don't know. I'm really open to anybody's understanding of that. Not that we need to. That's the other thing. I'm so much a clinician. Like, I'm not a researcher. I'm not a let me prove it to you. I want to do what works, and so I'm satisfied that it does. But at the same time, when I'm looking in trying to share this, it makes sense to me to grab onto some of that, and it just wasn't really there an explanation that satisfied, even hearing Steven Porges talk about it. So open to any of your thoughts on that. Okay, so the Berard auditory integration training, I actually hooked up with this 3 or 4 years ago before I heard about the safe and sound protocol. This is from a French ENT medical doctor. He's not alive anymore, but I actually learned this from one of his direct students who is still alive. She's in her 80s. And it involves modulated music. It involves delivering it in such a way. There are 20 half-hour sessions, whereas the safe and sound is 10 half-hour sessions. The frequency of these is twice a day. And as I said, the theory is mainly around allowing the stapedius muscle reflex to release and reset and re-engage, which, by the way, for Berard AIT or safe and sound protocol, one of the history things that cues me in is that they might benefit from that. As I said, trauma, any kind of trauma, anxiety, but specifically, have you had a lot of ear infections, especially as a kid? Because what does that mean? That means you have all this buildup, this fluid here in this area that muffles or alters how the brain hears sound. I had one of my best friends, my roommate in college, was deaf, and he talked like this, and because that's how they hear it. And so one of my partner, Dr. Green's daughters, started talking like that as she began to talk, and it was because she had a lot of ear infections, and that's how they're hearing that. So that's a sign to me that we might want to go through some of this training to really redefine how the brain is processing hearing. That's how I describe it. And let me just jump to this book. This, if you haven't read this, is a phenomenal book that talks about that, talks about redefining how the brain allocates neural resources, and fascinating book. In fact, I had a 73-year-old lady call me yesterday. Somehow she found me based on this. I don't know if it's on my website, but she's interested in reclaiming what's possible around that. She's a concert pianist, and she's lost some of that ability. So I think, especially in that hypergrowth the brain has as a child, if one of our main means of input in terms of the cranial nerves, the sound, is altered or muffled, there's room to recapture function there. And I think that's what this does, as well as SSP. They're so similar. I think there's a lot of overlap. So that makes sense to me that everything I've described here is at play with Safe and Sound protocol as well, even though it's described as mainly targeting the vagus nerve, and there's no mention of the vagus nerve in here per se. But one thing this has that the Safe and Sound protocol doesn't as a focus is we go through before and after and do an audiogram. I call it a hearing sensitivity test, but it's basically an audiogram. And we're really looking for hyperacusis. Are there frequencies at which the brain can hear a pin drop across the room? Are there areas like that? And this book correlates those. For example, a hyperacusis at 2,000 and 8,000 hertz is correlated with suicidal ideation and extreme depression. And there are other correlations as well, but that's the one that stands out to me. So you can see after the training that these go down. And what I started doing before I brought it into more than one office was I was doing pre and post maps with just doing this on people, 20 sessions. So it's like a 10-day process. And I was definitely getting a lot of change in the maps in the range of probably an average 25 to 30% change just from doing this. And a lot of it was in the temporal areas, and a lot of it was bringing hypocoherence into a different range than hypo, whether it was normal or hyper, as things are changing. So we don't do this at the same time as neurofeedback, but we do the Safe and Sound protocol in conjunction with neurofeedback. And I have seen the Safe and Sound protocol bring down these hyperacusis peaks as well. In fact, I'd hardly ever use this anymore. I just bring it up because it's really interesting, and it's in my background, and it to me helps explain how the Safe and Sound protocol works, even though they're not claiming all of this is happening. I think it is. Okay. So this, by the way, you can buy like, I think we bought 3 of these for about $450, and then it's a monthly subscription, I think $49 or $59 to a month to run all 3. So it's pretty reasonable if you're using it, which we weren't, so we stopped it. All right, I'd like to go in now to the Safe and Sound protocol. And I don't know if I finished this thought, but our flow in our office is about an hour per person. So really the HRV biofeedback didn't fit into our flow. We really like the Vlight, red and infrared light, which we'll get into a bit. We like things that are kind of amenable to putting somebody in a room and having them have that experience of relaxation and the added adjunctive therapy, either before or after neurofeedback, depending on what it is. So HRV biofeedback really did not fit into that. And if I had a feeling that it was working better than these other things, then certainly I'd make room for it, but I don't have that feeling. So let's take a look. This is what, when you go to your dashboard, this is all done through tablets and phones now. So like in our clinics, we have several tablets in each clinic that we can hand to people, and they do this in there. But as I said, most people now do it at home, so they can take advantage of something else as the adjunct in the office. So you have an option of inviting them to do it at home, or you add them onto your tablet that's in your office. And then you select which of these you want them to have access to. We always start, well, almost always, with the core. This is the program that they started with. And so adult music and child music. Child is really child. It's like toddler. It's like nursery rhymes. So anybody that is not a super toddler, we pick the adult music. And unfortunately, you're just stuck with that music. There's no way to change it. But I remind them, look, it's 10 of these, so suck it up, depending on their age. I don't tell kids to suck it up. So we have the core. Now that's recommended to only do once every 3 months. So I do have people that after your initial 10 sessions, which can be done at once or twice a day over a 5 to 10 day period. So you have 10 core half-hour segments. Then you can be flipped to what I call maintenance, which is kind of a half modulation. This is what Dr. Porges was referring to a little over a year ago as the light. This was not out yet, but this was the light, what they had in development. They were calling the light, which is like a half modulation. And then this connect is something, this classical music is really like a quarter modulation is what I understand. And this has no modulation. It's just really, so we don't ever use the connect, although I do have a few people that are using this, and then I mistakenly thought that it had no modulation like these, but it turns out it does have a quarter. So yeah, but this is where we start, unless they're having some sort of reaction, which I've had twice out of several hundred people where they just could not tolerate it for whatever reason. And this is more for trying out with a young kid, like, can you even wear the headphones? And if you can't, then there's no need to do this. But this is just listening to music, no modulation. Sorry, these two are. And the classical has a little bit. But this is where we start, and we can do it every 3 months. The Berard AIT, they say every 9 months, because they call it the Berard AIT, they call it a 10-day, 9-month program, because in those 10 days, you're resetting the hardware, these are my words, around the ear apparatus and reframing how the brain is hearing and processing hearing information. And then that's a 9-month time during which that remodels. So I guess this group thinks 3 months is good for that. All right. So this is a little more on each one. Here's the connect. In any case, it's 5 hours, and there are 2 half hours in each hour. So there's 10 half-hour sessions. So here's the core, and then here's the balance or the maintenance. And you can see on your dashboard for anybody that's doing it at home, when they did it, what they did, whether they made it through, whether they're not doing it. And I saw something recently. This is I think that's $139 a month now, and you can have kind of unlimited patient hookups. And starting in October, though, they're going to be, I don't know what the monthly fee is, but it's like $10 per active user. So that's still pretty reasonable. And we charge $500 for the whole plan of this. I know that was kind of the lowest I saw a year or two ago, but then when they went to home training, I've seen some people charging $300 online. My information's a year or two old. I don't really have time to look at what other people are doing for the most part in that realm, but like when we charge $500, that's open to your whole family. I hook a second and a third and a whatever, your immediate family, I'll hook everybody up so they can all do it. And also I apply that to any future neurofeedback services. So if they're like wanting to do this first instead of neurofeedback, but we do it in conjunction. But the biggest way we use this is we use it with our existing patients that are doing neurofeedback, and we don't charge extra for this. We don't charge extra for any of the other things we do. It's just included. We charge enough for our plan of care, so to speak, to cover anything else. All right. So that's been a game changer for us. Number one, at its effectiveness, at what I really see is bringing balance to the vagus nerve and bringing calm to a person's nervous system. And number two, the ability for them to do it at home. So let's see, 12:40, so we got about 10 minutes, so that's good. So some other considerations I really wanted to let you know about in the realm of bringing balance to the vagus nerve or nerves. So this parasympathetic blend of essential oils from Vibrant Blue Oils, Jody Cohen wrote this book that just came out this month. I pre-ordered it last year. She did a presentation at some seminar I was online with, and really good book, really good explanation of vagus nerve. And I have to tell you, this is worth getting. I think you can get a first-time bottle for $15. The wholesale is like $25. It retails for $39, but I had somebody that does oils in my office try to combine these from both Young Living and doTERRA and another company, and it doesn't come close to, from what I sense from this, what she's created. Somehow she's distilled these, and that must make a difference, but you can just like feel relief when you smell this or rub it right where the vagus nerve comes off out of the mastoid process, right behind the ear, right in front of that bone. That's where the vagus nerve comes out. So you rub it on each side. So I can't say that I've started doing this clinically yet, but just telling people about it and they'll get it and try it and everybody loves it. This is a great book. So is his first one, but this really speaks to neuroplasticity. And if you haven't read that, it's an incredible book. So other considerations, probably 20 years ago, I did a lot of, along with chiropractic, I did a lot of auriculotherapy, microcurrent delivery to certain points on the ear. I was fascinated to see this. This is new to me, but apparently they are, I don't know if they were having side effects with the vagal nerve stem implants or what, but now they're really starting to do ear microcurrent to these areas that are innervated by a branch of the vagus nerve. So that's cool to know about. Alpha Stem typically puts a ear clips on and introduces microcurrent. The Mind Alive units have that too. We're playing with those a bit. I have a Stem Plus Pro, which is auriculotherapy microcurrent, where you can go in and hit these points. But just to finish my thought, I used to do a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot, but work with some addiction recovery folks. And there were certain key points here you could deliver microcurrent to that made a huge difference. So that's worth knowing about. And here you can see where these cranial nerves 5, 7, and 10 innervate the ear. I've heard people say they're not true acupuncture points. I forget why, but here you can see, I guess because, well, I don't know, but you can definitely target these areas, and this innermost flat areas where that branch of the vagus where you can get at that, so to speak. This guy looks like somebody, I can't figure out who. And this is just a really detailed slide. I think I forgot to take that one out, as I got a little too deep for this, but this is cool. It shows kind of where that area I just showed, how that feeds back, and there is a definitely more direct means of explaining how this type of thing can bring balance to the vagus nerve, and I think it's worth knowing about. Other considerations, for sure, office environment, lighting. When we went to lamps and no overhead lights, even though they were full spectrum, there was a noticeable difference, not just in the vibe of the whole place, but people coming in, people working there all day. It's just a much more pleasant place to be. Diffusers with essential oils, we really like wild orange mixed with peppermint. That's our favorite go-to office blend. And then to create some areas in our offices where they can do their AVE or whatever their pre is, red infrared light pads, Vlight. This is really, it's just an organic way to bring balance to the vagus nerve. There's nothing like actually being safe and relaxed to bring that state to the nervous system. Blankets, we've gone to personalized blankets. So we, of course, spray down in between everybody, and we have like these plastic containers where we just ordered these blankets online, so everybody has their own blanket. So we're not sharing blankets, and that's just kind of added a little special thing. And we have several rooms with recliners in it, so they can one person to a room, unless you're coming from the same family, then you can have several people in there. And we've kind of closed our waiting rooms, so that leaves more pre-neurofeedback areas to play with, the waiting rooms now. We're a big fan of red and infrared light. If you haven't seen Marvin Berman's recent presentation, that's well worth watching. He's done several with us. And oh, here it is, the Vlight up here. We use the NeuroGamma in all of our offices, as well as the Lumen photon pads. I'll tell you more about this. It's a combination. We use a pad that's about that long if you put these together, and they're 180 diodes, half red and half infrared. And we wrap those around the brainstem area and use it in conjunction with the Vlight. I think the red light does the same thing as the nasal applicator from the Vlight does. Around 635 nanometers, you're really bringing a cool effect to the blood. And so that's why it goes up the nose. And that was the first thing to go when COVID hit. So I was like thinking of a different way to do that. I've seen these things where you can put it on your wrist, but this kind of solves that purpose. We wrap this around the sides of the neck and even up over the ears to get the effect of stimulating cranial nerves 5, 7, and 10. And then this kind of goes on top of that. This is really good for wound healing as well, any kind of like household needs. So often people will just buy these and use them at home. Check these out in Marvin Berman's presentation, really neat. I had a guy bring me a picture. Marvin sent somebody my way who's doing this study on this, and I got to do a map pre and post where he was using this. He showed me pictures of wearing this crazy helmet, but that's pretty cool. Here's another one he talked about, but we're just a big fan of red and infrared light. Yeah, I think that's all I got. I'd love to open for questions. Here's my contact info. Super excited to be a BCIA mentor through NewMind and Dr. Suter. and kind of been offline. I had a concussion in October, but that's so much better now. And I feel like I'm back in the world. And yeah, I've really enjoyed this.
All right, well, JoJo, we're getting folks unmuted. Just a couple of quick comments. One, if people start using diffusers, they have to be careful at home if they have pets. Always check to see some of these essential oils are great for us, but they're not so good for pets. I learned
Oh,
that
good.
myself. My office was downstairs in my own home, and my animals never went down there. I kept it pet free because people have allergies to cats and dogs. But when I thought about it upstairs and we did some research, they said, be careful with X, Y, and Z. So always check those. And just so you know, are you working with the NIR helmet that you showed that with from Dr. Berman's talk? That
This one,
helmet there?
no,
Yeah,
no, I'm gonna
I
get
just
one.
got it.
I heard that on the
Yeah,
I went back and listened to his yesterday. I heard that you had one
yeah.
ordered. Do you like it?
Yep, I just started working with it. I'll let you know. But so far with the
Cool.
first person, we've gotten some nice results. So I haven't even tried it out myself yet. I've been so darn busy. I just started using it. It just came this past week. So just starting with it,
Nice.
but I'll keep you posted. All
Please
right, I
do.
think everyone's unmuted. I'm gonna be quiet and let others ask questions.
Can you speak to the use of the Safe and Sound protocol with clients with concussion?
Um, I've had a few. It is what I always look for that. Where's that threshold for neurological fatigue for you? When you're recovering from a concussion, it might be anything in my experience. It might be I would reach to the red and infrared light before the Safe and Sound protocol. The Safe and Sound protocol to me is not I don't automatically think of that when I hear concussion. As I said, when I think anxiety or past trauma, certainly concussion is a trauma, but it's more of a physical thing. I would think it would have to. It's worth a try. I mean, I haven't had any blowback from it, so to speak, from people having neurological fatigue from having tried it, including myself. Uh, so I would say just give it a try. And I always tell people to really be on the lookout for that, though. If you're, if it doesn't feel good, don't do it. And they have my cell phone, and everybody that I'm doing this with is, including some of you. I opened it up and had quite a few takers, and I'm still open until October of 2021 for the recording of this. If you are hearing this and on our list serve, I'm happy to, no charge, just hook you up so you can try it out.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, Dr. Yonce. My name is Heather. I did gain access that you gave me through your offering. Thank you. I did have a question about using the protocol. So I had tried like one half-an-hour session. It was a little different than I expected with like the music and everything. I didn't really know what it would be like. And so I just wondered, do you recommend that, like, do you listen to it the same time every day, or can you do things while you're listening to it, or should you just sit and listen?
Good question. And did you make it through all 10, or did you find was that not a good experience for you hearing the first half hour?
So I only did the first half hour. I tried it when I was already feeling a bit emotionally worked up about something, and went through like a big release process as I listened to the music, and then I did feel better after. But then I had wanted to wait for your talk because I wasn't really sure if I was using it correctly.
Yeah, I would say definitely shoot me a text, and let's notch down the modulation for you, either on the one that's a quarter modulation or one that's a half, and just kind of start a little slower in what we're kind of asking the brain and the eighth cranial nerve to do. So I'd be happy to work with you on that. To me, the time of day, it doesn't really matter. It's just whenever you can get it in. And in fact, it doesn't matter if you fall asleep while you're doing it. So a lot of people do it at night. And as far as doing things during it, with the Berard auditory integration training, they're very strict around what you can do or not do, like no fine motor stuff, no reading. With this, I like the Safe and Sound. It feels a little more relaxed in terms of how they present it, but still, I like people to just be sitting, relaxed, eyes open or eyes closed, but not actively doing something else. Certainly not driving, but not even like reading, or because you're wanting to give your brain full range to experience this without having to do or attend to other things.
Okay, thank you. Can I actually ask you one more question?
Sure.
As you've worked with this protocol with other people, with your clients and maybe yourself or anyone, how do they tend to feel during using it and then after using it, like immediately after?
Well, I have a good mix. Sometimes people really don't notice anything. Sometimes they feel really relaxed afterwards. That's probably the most common thing, is that it made me feel relaxed. Sometimes they feel agitated, and if that's the case, we probably want to, certainly if by the next time, if that agitation is not on the decrease, if it's on the increase, or if it's intensifying in some way, we just want to, maybe it's not the thing for you. Like I said, I've had 2 people that it wasn't the thing for them. The only thing we can do with them is some red and infrared light. I mean, and we're moving next into SMR up training at CZ. But yeah, this is one of the most ways to invite the brain toward change. It's one of the least demanding that I've ever run across. And I would say if you're having types of reaction like anxiety or things like that, like that's really kind of a sign that this needs balance in your nervous system, but maybe just not so fast, maybe, more spread out. I've heard Dr. Porges even say, with extreme trauma, you might go one half-hour session a couple times a week. Because I had the question when I got this of, my hope and my idea was to use it as a prelude to neurofeedback. Well, I'm not doing this neurofeedback with people every day like they recommend this be delivered twice a day for 5 days in a row. And I've taken that and said, or once a day for 10 days in a row, because that seems to work just fine.
Okay, thank you so much. That was so helpful.
Great. Yeah, shoot me a text. I'd be glad to explore a lower setting, so to speak, with you.
JoJo, this is Martin. Just a quick
Martin.
technical question. Obviously, this is not a feedback protocol. It's a stable, standard one-way protocol, right? Sound
Correct.
goes in. Question: is the sound somehow modulated? Is the loudness changing, the pitch changing? Is there any modulation, or is it a steady flow of music?
They say the music is modulated, and specifically such that the high frequencies and the low frequencies are removed to take away the nervous system's tendency to those highs and lows are often associated evolutionarily with danger or threat, and so those frequencies are removed. And as to how those middle frequencies are modulated further, I don't know. You can hear the music kind of going in and out, so that it's almost like the volume is going up and down a bit. And Berard AIT explains that as kind of bringing the brain into, like, leaning into hearing something, which is accentuating its resetting. I haven't heard that explained with Safe and Sound protocol, but even with Safe and Sound, I do notice the volume kind of goes up and down, but I can't speak to why or what exactly is happening there.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense functionally. Thank you very much. That gives me a clear picture of what it is doing.
Great.
Hey, JoJo, this is Carl Johnson. How are you?
Hey, good, Carl. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for your presentation. I was one of the ones that took advantage of your offer as well. And I did all 10 sessions over, all the sessions over 10 days, I believe it was. And I had some interesting experiences. I felt, to answer how other people felt, I felt very relaxed and calm. And after even the first one, but I did it laying down with some nice headphones that are for studio, mixing and such, not noise canceling, of course. And of course, the vagus nerve affects many different parts of our digestive system. And I did find that I had an improvement in bowel function, interestingly, even though I never thought I had a problem. So definitely I could tell it was affecting that vagus nerve. But
that's interesting. Makes sense.
Yeah, so that was just, what I noticed. But
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool, and I think I'd like to implement it. I also did lay on a Jade, a full body infrared heating pad too for many of the sessions.
Nice. Yeah, we often use the Lumen Photon pad with whatever we're doing in the office on the brainstem. I just think that helps whatever you're doing.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to give you some feedback, and I appreciate
Cool. Thanks, Carl.
you making it available.
My pleasure.
Still haven't got my wife to do it, so she got to hook me up. It's like, okay, she's not technically inclined. She thinks it's difficult, but it's not. But I'll help her out.
Yeah, if you need me to resend that, just let me know. I think it's good for a couple months and then it resets. But
okay, I'll just take a look. Thanks.
Click of a button. All right.
All right, we're close to the top of the hour. Any last questions for JoJo? Well, on that lovely note, great presentation, really informative, JoJo. It has been recorded. Folks, we will have this posted up on the NewMind YouTube channel, hopefully within the next few days. And JoJo, you can either directly send out or send to me, and I'll send it out, your slides, so people have those. And we really appreciate your time. It's great.
It was fun. It was fun. Thanks. Yeah, I'll just send it out to the listserv and copy you as well.
Okay, perfect. Lovely.
All right. Well, have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much, JoJo.
Thank you, JoJo.
Before people hang up, by the way, folks, this Friday is Good Friday. You know, NewMind will be having its Friday lunch and learn. So we will be here Friday. We've already have a topic selected, and we will be here Monday night after Easter as well. And I think that one is sort of an open discussion. I think this Friday we're going to continue to talk on the trend screens, looking at trend screens that Richard started talking about the other day. So we'll see you this Friday. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see everybody soon. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, JoJo. Bye-bye.